getting some feedback here. Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Introduce themselves, and I will start with Dr. Tinkle Williams.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Kazia Tinkle-Williams, and I teach English Composition, Humanities, and African American Studies. And this is actually my 13th year teaching here at Chandler-Gilbert.
Oh my gosh, 13, lucky 13. That's my favorite.
Or
And
unlucky.
yeah, right. And how about Professor Saraiji?
My name is Malda Saraiji. I am an OIO in economics. This is my first year at Chandler-Gilbert, and I'm celebrating 20 years of teaching this year.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, we're so lucky to have you here. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being part of the panel. And how about Dr. Wilkowski?
Hi, I'm Dr. Colleen Wilkowski, and I teach English composition here at Chandler-Gilbert. I teach English 101 and English 102, and this is my fourth year here at Chandler-Gilbert.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today. To get started, we'll just kind of give you a little brief definition of what we're talking about when we talk about AI. So there's all different kinds. I think what we're most familiar with, or what's kind of in the zeitgeist right now, is generative AI. So that is the language models. You can see the definition here. It's something that generates new outputs based on data that they've been trained on. So they've been trained on these really large language models, right? So although it seems like they talk to us and give us what we can perceive like accurate information, it really is just putting together words, which I think is an important thing to think about. So in January of this year, 2025, ChatGPT had 4.67 billion visits. So that's quite large if you think about the population of the whole planet, right? Professor Saraiji made this really beautiful model that kind of touches on AI's integration in education. And obviously for us, we're in higher education. So Professor, would you like to comment on this?
Actually, I wanted to talk about the evolution of AI integration in education. So in 2021, late 2021, we started talking about, AI, and we said, it's only going to be a fad, it's going to go away, we're not sure it's going to stay, and so on and so forth. So a lot of educators actually set this idea of artificial intelligence aside and shoved it, and they didn't really take it seriously. In early 2022, we realized that it's not going anywhere. And then we have the famous AI cheating syndrome, the students are using it to cheat, and we still have that syndrome, unfortunately. We still have, this mentality, students are using it to cheat. And then about, I would say 1 year ago or 1.5 years ago, we started having, students use AI as long as they cite it, we started allowing students to use AI as long as they cite it. And then some educators started to say, okay, let's allow students to use AI anytime. And to be realistic, they are using it all the time. So allowing them to do so formally is just a formality, in my opinion. And then instructors actually started using it in class activities. So they started actually using artificial intelligence or large language models, because artificial intelligence is not only, large language models. It's Alexa, it's Siri, it's Google Home, it's the dictation, it's a lot more than just the large language models. So they started using large language models tools in class activities. And the most recent actually applications of AI is really revamping entire courses around AI. The course learning objectives are starting to be revised. And, starting about late last year in 2024, Colombia actually introduced the first fully AI-led course with no human interaction. And I'm gonna talk about that later in the presentation. Several universities this year have started doing that. So instructors are designing courses fully led by artificial intelligence, so without human interaction. And this is the evolution as of the most recent introduction of AI in higher education.
Wow, I actually hadn't heard that there was courses being totally led by AI. So thank you for sharing that. I'll throw a little plug in as we begin the conversation that Chandler-Gilbert is actually offering one of the first degrees in artificial intelligence, our first bachelor degree, which you can begin taking classes in the fall of this year. So we will be offering a bachelor's in artificial intelligence. So that's pretty exciting. It's obviously here to stay. So for our first question, or I guess it's not really a question, I'll ask each of our professors to define their field, and I will start with you, Dr. T.
So I'm glad I started taking notes on how to define my field. So I have an interesting background with this topic in particular. So I've been teaching English composition since 2001. So we began at a university, and when we began teaching English composition, everything was still being turned in with a paper that we had to teach our students how to staple the correct way, and still students had to print things out. Everything was a hard copy for our assignment prompts. And most of our assignments were also done by hand in class, and we still had portfolios that were all paper. So to imagine that 24 years later in my career that I would be learning about machine learning from a writing teacher's standpoint from 2015 when I was taking my doctoral coursework in cognitive psychology. We also had to learn about machine learning, and this was at the very beginning when Alexas were first being released. So what we're seeing now, these started as all what are called NLPs, or natural language processors, and the GPT structure, the architecture, is an outgrowth of those natural language processors. So that's where all of Siri and everything else emerged. But GPTs are actually generative pre-trained transformers, and that's a little bit different. So all of these things started off as just processing words, and arranging them according to which words statistically went together at a higher percentage than other words. And now we're to the point in just a few years where not only can that simple algorithm generate something new, you can pre-train it to where it can transform any natural words coming in into something else entirely. And that's in just maybe 5 to 8 years. So I started presenting on this in 2021 with how it's also been used to create and transform words, like common words that are used in hip hop videos, to actually create a whole entire virtual rapper who actually had a record contract given to him in 2021, who was just a GPT. So it's been interesting trying to navigate these two different spaces with teaching students how to write and then also teaching students how to ethically use AI. So as a result of these two things, I'm also part of our institute's our AI Institute for Technology through the AAC&U. So I'm also at this same time learning how to teach faculty members how to use AI so that we in turn can teach our students how to increase their AI literacy, as that's what really AI is going to demand of us within the next few years. So I come at it a variety of ways as composition teacher and someone who's on our AAC&U AI faculty integration panel as well. Sorry for the lengthy definition, but I think, did I leave anything out, Kelsey?
Do you want to talk about AFR at all? In
So then
mythology
also
or?
with that, I also teach ethnic studies and African American history, which is where deconstructing the images of FN Mecca, the first GPT hip hop artist, also aligned with what I teach my students in African American history about the visual rhetoric of blackface minstrelsy, and a lot of the same stereotypic tropes that were used to build this current AI rapper are based on minstrel blackface characters from the 1800s that were America's first form of pop culture from about 1899 until 1965. So there really are a lot of different intersections in which AI really has changed pretty much every aspect of my teaching life, from humanities to composition to African American studies.
And I'll say from the library perspective, so I'm a librarian, right? And back in the 90s, it was the internet that was going to take away our jobs, and then it was cell phones, and now it's AI. And we know in the library fields that they're not taking away our jobs, they're just changing our jobs. And our jobs are to, like Dr. T said, facilitate the ethical use and the critical consideration of how these technologies are going to change our society. Professor Saraji, would you like to define your field, please?
For me, it's going to be a very short, definition. Economics is the science of decision making. And it's actually a social science. It's not in the business school. So a lot of students make that mistake. And it teaches you about how to use scarce resources to satisfy unlimited ones. And we're going to talk about that again towards the end when we talk about the environment and sustainability. So, and that would be it. That's what economics is.
And
Dr. W?
Yes, so I am also in composition. And so when I was thinking about, how I would define composition, I thought a lot about the idea that when we're teaching students writing and we're teaching them to integrate sources and integrate research, we're really teaching them effective communication. Because as I was, coming up with this definition, I was thinking of, why is it that AI is impacting my teaching to such a large degree? And I think it really gets at that communication, that writing is a tool for effective communication. So as a composition instructor, we teach writing organization, we teach integration of sources, we teach critical thinking about those sources. And I think the end result that we're hoping for is that students are able to use writing as a tool to communicate effectively with others, and also to think critically about the world around them. So those are two things that I think are really essential to composition studies and the study of rhetoric. So that's how I would. Oh, and also I just glanced at my notes. One other thing is that we want our students to take those writing and composition skills and be able to transfer them to meet their goals, whether those be personal goals, academic or career goals. And that's what when I'm, conversing with students about ethical use of AI, it really does come down to the fact that I really want them to understand how to write and understand how to think critically so that they are then able to transfer these skills into other contexts and be successful in other contexts.
And we know here at Chandler-Gilbert in the Maricopa district, every student who is pursuing a degree or a pathway, they have to take English 101 and 102, right? So we'll all come into contact with these kinds of lessons, really. So we started kind of talking about this with Professor Saraji's AI integration and evolution and education model. But I would love for each of you to expand a little bit on maybe how AI is impacting your role in teaching, whether that be plagiarism in students, or how you're using it as a tool in your own development of lessons. So let's start backwards this time, and let's go with Dr. W first.
Sure. Well, yeah, from my specific perspective, I have definitely seen the uptick in plagiarism. It's definitely been something that's been a challenge for me. Um, it is something as far as professional development goes. I do think I need to do more in, coming up with ways to kind of use it creatively. There are some applications that I've, discussed with students, like it could be a great tool to, help explain more complex text to them. That could be a way that I could see AI being used effectively, or to generate ideas, generate search terms. There's definitely use for it, and I think I need to, continue to think about those things. But I do also feel, on the other hand, that in the first year composition space, it has caused some frustrations, just because first year composition is such a kind of basic level writing class, and we are teaching them those critical thinking skills and those writing organization skills that they're going to carry with them throughout the rest of their college career, educational careers, even in their personal life. Like, for example, I teach about public issues in my class. So I really want students to be kind of enriching themselves in their personal lives so that they're, more aware and engaged citizens. So I feel sometimes when, students aren't really engaging with their papers because they're using AI, it does take away from a lot of those learning goals, and it breaks trust a bit. So it's something I've been trying to navigate. I will say I do feel like, as AI has, become older, I know it's only been like 3 years, but the first year I just felt like it was very kind of like blatant plagiarism sort of things. And I feel like as has gone on, and I've gotten, a bit better about explaining like why it can't be used in certain situations, and why it's, important that we're having multiple drafts, and kind of explaining the logic behind it. I do kind of feel like students have been more authentic in their writing. So that's been going well. I know, people will still use it, and I also, should become better informed on how it can be used. But I do think that there's some skills, first year composition skills, that, you just have to gain through practicing writing. And that I think is the place where it's been most frustrating, is just, having students try to kind of like skip that like difficult learning step, because I just feel like challenges are a really integral part of the learning process.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Dr. T and I actually went to a conference. So she mentioned the AAC&U earlier, and that is the Association of American Colleges and Universities. So it's kind of this large group where a ton of different institutions are members and participate in professional development and conferences. And one of the presenters said a fact that really resonated with me, which was that experts who use AI elevate themselves, whereas novices that use AI are robbing themselves because they don't have that foundational learning. And so when they use it, they're actually robbing themselves of that development. Whereas if somebody already has that level, and then you're using AI to tweak and to change and to edit, right, then it's a different experience cognitively. Um, Dr. T, would you like to follow up?
I would actually, that's a perfect segue. So, based on what Kelsey was just saying, the person that presented at the AAC&U and conference that she and I attended was actually uh, one of the instructors that I had as part of the AAC&U AI Institute team that I'm a part of. So we actually have to read his book, and we had entire sessions with him. And basically, from that perspective, we're doing our students a disservice if we do not teach them how to use AI tools properly, because they'll be behind everyone else in the workplace. Because AI tools and AI literacy is going to be considered in minimum qualification very soon from their perspective. And so we also had a student panel where they talked about the ways in which they used AI and the ways in which they felt like they would be behind others if they didn't know how to use it. So we also had recently an AI summit at Chandler-Gilbert where we did 3 different workshops that were teaching faculty members how to incorporate AI based on that same premise Kelsey, excuse me, mentioned. The literature shows that the higher someone's misunderstandings of AI is, and the higher their ability to, or the lower their ability to understand AI is. And the lower someone's ability is to understand AI, the higher their ability is to misuse it by just seeing it as a way to copy and paste plagiarize. So I always teach my students how to use AI in composition in a variety of ways so that they can see it as an assistive technology, like a collaborative partner, rather than a replacive technology to where you can just put in a prompt and then spit out something general, because everyone's going to be able to just spit out something general. You need to be able to take what that minimum is and enhance it using your critical thinking skills, using your composition skills, using your writing ability to create something even better. So on top of that, what we also do is I use examples in class where, say we come up with a topic, we pull up what a basic chat GPT would say, and then we dissect it and we talk about, okay, well, how does this really fit the topic? Okay, what more could be said? Do you like the way it's written? Does it sound like it has a voice to you? Look at it according to the rhetorical principles. Do you see them using logos, pathos, ethos? And then really my students see that it really is very, very basic and that you can use it to put, the ice cream and the cherry on top instead of just turning in the same scoop of vanilla ice cream that everyone else is by only using it to copy and paste.
So I teach a information studies class, and in that class I have students evaluate an AI generated essay, and that is typically the takeaway, right? Is that it's really basic and a lot of times uses sources unethically as well. So I think that is a really important activity to kind of get us thinking about how AI is used. Professor Saraiji, I'm really curious to hear your experience with AI in the classroom because you are in the social science as opposed to a writing heavy discipline. So please share with us how it's impacted your role in teaching.
Well, actually, first of all, I am thankful that I am not in the writing department or anything related to writing, and I don't envy you guys with the advent of AI. But however, I do see that human writing is going to become way more valuable because just like any person, AI has a style and you can recognize it. As educators, we can recognize that this has been written by AI. It is blur, it is generic, and you guys can describe it better than I can. It is not specific. So what I decided to do is actually to incorporate it. So I allow my students to use AI in all instances for all assignments in my course without even having to cite it because I know when they use it. So, however, I tell them that they are fully responsible for the use, for what they put on Canvas. So all of the assignments that I assign, they have to turn them in on Canvas, and they are fully responsible for that. For one of the assignments that I have, I actually ask them to go into Character AI and talk about, I don't know if you're familiar with Character AI, and actually at the AI Summit, that was my toilet paper talk. So if you guys saw, the science for toilet paper, this was my talk. Actually, what I have the students do, Character AI is an AI tool that has different characters. And you will find, when I showcase this assignment in class, I go log into Character AI and I say, okay, so we're gonna talk to John Maynard Keynes, and who is, the founder of Keynesian economics. and then Friedrich Hayek, who is also a neoclassical economist. And they used to always debate and, you know, butt heads. And, you know, so it's like, why? And I would ask them to ask, so you can actually call them, it's a very cool tool. You're going to call the economist, you know, call John Maynard Keynes, ask them what would they have done, ask, you know, Keynes, what would he have done for the shortage of toilet paper during the pandemic? And then copy and paste his answer into your discussion post on Canvas. And then after you copy and paste it, so this is the first part of your discussion, you're gonna have to complete and correct Keynes's answer. So because the answer is very generic, it doesn't talk about the specifics of Keynesian economics, you know, you're gonna have to complete and correct it. And there will be several Keynes in Keynes's characters within character AI. So depending on which one they land on, they're gonna they might land on a Keynes that says that I am against government intervention in the economy, while Keynes was a big proponent of government intervention in the economy. So depending on which character they land on, they might fall on one that is not actually theoretically accurate. So they will go back and correct the answer, you know, character AI's answer, and then they're gonna have to assume the same role. Say they were assigned Keynes, they're gonna have to assume the same role to answer their classmates who were assigned the role of Hayek. And so they're gonna have to defend Keynes's theory and Keynes's ideology throughout the discussion. So I thought this was a good way. And of course, when I was demonstrating it in class, I'm like, you know, you guys can talk to interesting people, not only Keynes and Hayek and Adam Smith, and you know, you can talk to Taylor Swift. So I heard, like, you know, throughout the classroom, they're using their laptops and they're talking to Taylor Swift, you know, Taylor Swift's voice, you know, throughout the classroom. And so that's one of the assignments that I have in my macro class. In my microeconomics class, my plan is to actually introduce another assignment called Today the Answer, Tomorrow the Question. So what I'm gonna be doing is giving them the answer to a certain problem and telling them, okay, go use the AI tool of your choice. You can choose ChatGPT, you can use Claude, you can use Gemini, whatever you want to use, and find what is the question to this that will lead to this.
Can you please make sure you're on mute?
Yeah.
Sorry, Professor.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Not a problem. So they're gonna have to actually find the question that leads to this particular answer. And I have tried this. If you don't know your stuff, you won't be able to do it. Believe me, like I tried it. I'm like, even for me as a professor of economics, it is hard. And at the same time, I am actually teaching them prompt engineering, which is the most highly desired skill by employers today. So I want to give them in my courses, I want to prepare them for the job market. So they need to use AI tools, but they need to learn economics while using AI tools. So my goal is to actually make them use make them use AI tools to learn economics. And still, you know, while maintaining critical analysis like the assignment with character AI, they still have to maintain their critical thinking. And so that's for the assignment creation side, but also for me to design my courses as well. So within my courses, I actually I actually use it to create course outlines. I use it to create actually PowerPoint presentations. I use it to create rubrics. It's an excellent tool to create rubrics and in-class activities also. So it has raised my productivity tremendously. And I have not done this yet, but a lot of my colleagues use Packback. I don't know if any of you use Packback, but within Packback, my colleagues, they use Packback, the curiosity score, as the main score for their assignment, for their discussion. So the curiosity score is an automatically created score by Packback, and so which uses artificial intelligence. So I have not used Packback yet, but I am planning on using it. So that's how it has affected my teaching.
I know that Dr. W uses Packback, I believe.
Yeah. I love Packback. I'm planning on using it next semester, hopefully.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Professor. So now I want to kind of move on from the education piece and kind of talk about these larger systemic things we're seeing. So I wanted to talk to Dr. T. Sorry, I have my notes here. I'm sorry. Actually, this is just questions for everyone. And Professor Saraji, you probably have the most insight, given that you are the economics expert here. But we'll start with Dr. T. So according to a recent report, 300 million jobs could be lost by AI by 2030.
That
Sorry,
I'm
everyone.
also just with the different numbers that Professor Martinez was talking about with all of the jobs that are being lost. We actually did a study in Phi Theta Kappa about 5 years ago on automation and AI and worlds at work and how it was going to be changing the job market and the economy. And one of the things that we looked
And yeah, I'll stick around for just a few if you have any lingering questions. And again, apologize for the fact that we got hacked. That's the first